Kia ora team, welcome into the breakdown. Yes, the Black Ferns are going to the World Cup final. How good, 25-24 over France. Simply amazing atmosphere at Eden Park last night. Taylah Johnson, Mills Molina, Chelsea Semple, great to see you all again. Chelsea, I know you had some early birthday celebrations yesterday. What time did you get in this morning after that epic result? Truth be told.
Yeah, probably the same time Mills was leaving studio after the All Blacks game. No. But
6 a.m.
Yeah, about that. It was I just want to say an unreal atmosphere last night. You could see it at Eden Park, and even in my house there was so many people there, and everyone stopped what we were doing, and I had this whole room of people just absolutely tuned into the Black Ferns game, and the celebrations were just, oh, it was just so exciting. I get a little bit emotional thinking about it. I had a few other ex-Black Ferns there as well watching, and it just meant so much to us. And the girls, take my hat off to them. They were outstanding, weren't they?
I definitely had a tear in the eye. Taylah, it was one of the great tests that we've seen. Not pretty at times, but in terms of atmosphere, expectation, what it meant, one of the great tests at Eden Park that we've seen.
100%. The 22,000 people that showed up were treated to such a good game, but not even just the Black Ferns game. The game before that, England-Canada, it was such a spectacle of women's rugby, and over 80,000 people have turned out for the Rugby World Cup. They've been smashing records, and I'll tell you what, I honestly think that the crowd is probably what got the Black Ferns over the line as well, because, you know, France got off to such a good start, but the New Zealand team just never went away, and I think it really was that crowd. Like, there was literally poise going like this, you know, as far as the eye could see. It was great. I think they really played a role in it, so hopefully everyone turns out next week.
Millsy, we've
Sold
seen...
out.
Yeah, well, hopefully...
Well, I hope it's not the English fans, because I tell you what, they were there in numbers.
I reckon Chelsea get some extra seating on at the West and East stand, because I know last night trying to get tickets, it said sold out. We know what happened in that Australia game. We saw some empty seats at the start, so you hope that it is jam-packed. You expect it will be.
My phone's been going off today with people messaging, trying to get me to get them tickets. And I'm like, how am I going to get you tickets? But there's just such a demand, which is just, man, I'm just so proud.
Millsy, we've seen the evolution of this team under Wayne Smith since last year. It's been such an incredible ride to watch the evolution of the Black Ferns. How much will they take out of an occasion like that, an experience like that at Eden Park, winning a big semi-final over France? You've been there yourself in those moments. How will that equip them for next week?
I think it'd be massive, and I think it's probably actually fitting that it's happened this way, given the fact that if you look at it historically, you know, the Black Ferns have dominated Rugby World Cups. You know, they've gone in and we perhaps had been so much hype around it, but the whole sort of losing the end-of-year tour has gotten people involved again, thinking, man, we need to get behind our wahine and get them sort of over the line. You spoke about it, right? That's probably what got them over the line last night, but that pressure and the game plan they're actually implementing, or everything else that's gone on as well, and to finally sort of bring it together for this one game. And I know it's not quite over yet, but I think they're going to take a lot out of that game like yesterday, because of the pressure they're under. You know, and that's when you get to finals footy, a lot of that, you know, will happen. And I'm glad they sort of experienced it and come out the other end. And yeah, we need to get behind them once again. One more game, and you know, our wahine can get up, man. It's going to be magic.
And it's almost like redemption for a lot of those players as well. You know, after losing to them at the end of your tour last year, and then to be able to beat them in such a crucial game as well, it kind of just makes you flush what happened at the end of your tour, because you've beaten France. You know, France were the favourites heading into that game, even on some of the odds. So it was great to see New Zealand, get up.
Chelsea, I think that the impressive thing wasn't obviously the 1 point win in the end, which is all that matters really, but the way in which the Black Ferns absorbed so much pressure. The French bossed the breakdown, didn't they? And we still managed to compete and score some good tries.
I think it's such a positive thing, because we saw the Black Ferns in the opening test against Australia, and it was the first time for a lot of those girls playing in front of a packed out stadium, and we probably didn't handle the pressure too well in that opening 20. So to see the evolution of how these girls are adapting and being able to handle that coming into the later stages of the tournament is just so crucial, so important. And I do have to say, I really feel for the French 10, because she is an outstanding player and she doesn't miss kicks very often, so I know she'll be hurting today. But I can't say I'm not happy that she did miss that one, but yeah, I just wanted to give her a little shout out as well, Caroline Drouin.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at some of the stats from that semi-final and see how it all stacked up at the very end of it. Of course, the stat that mattered at the top, 25 points to 24, all that mattered in the end. But, Mills, when we look at this, they had to make almost twice as many tackles, France, and it was carries for me, carry metres the way in which the Ferns played in that part of the field that was impressive.
Yeah, and I think also to stay within what they wanted, the game plan that they wanted to play with. They've always said, you know, they're not going to try and sort of beat these teams up. The French are very physical, and we've seen a lot of that yesterday as well. But the carry meters and to wear them down, you know, to make up those sort of 500 or so, and it wasn't as clean or fluent as perhaps they would have wanted it to be, but they still stuck to it, you know, and to keep sort of trying to actually wear down, you know, those French defenders. And I think that's probably what got them over the line as well. The fact they had to make so many tackles. But when you're in it and you're in a massive battle like that, and it's not quite fluent, it's not quite going your way, sometimes you still have to try and stick at it. But for how long? And that's what you got to take your hat off to the Black Ferns, because there's real belief within the side and real belief in the game plan they're trying to implement.
And Chelsea, we want to talk, obviously a lot of focus is going on Wayne Smith, but the coaching team he's got with him, and you wanted to special mention for Wes Clark.
Yeah, I need to give a shout out to my good mate, Wesley Clark. He's the defence coach for the Black Ferns, and he has been harping on and on about getting our tackle percent over 90% for years. End of year tour last year, we were down 80%, maybe even lower, and he has said we will not win a World Cup until our tackle percent's over 90%. And so that's a massive win for him. And kudos to the girls. You know, France were coming at them. They're hard runners. So to have that stat there is looking really positive heading into next week.
I think another big stat too is the defenders beaten, because the Black Ferns, they almost doubled that. And I think it genuinely is because they've got such brilliant athletes. You look at the Porsches and the Rubies and the Aishas, but even Ruahei, Teresa, that back line was absolutely phenomenal. And the French team were the best defensive team heading into this game across the whole competition. And then obviously with all the carries and things like that, is that the Black Ferns, they actually didn't stray from their game plan. They always said they were going to hold on to it and they weren't going to kick it out of the 22, and they still did that. And it still worked for them. So I like the way that they actually stuck to their guns and they didn't change up the game plan. In fact, the French were forced to change up their game plan because they kicked the most out of every single team in this competition, and they hardly kicked last night. They hardly tested Renee Holmes. They hardly tested Ruby when she had to go into fullback. So I really think that this Black Ferns team are kind of carrying that mana that, you know, the French team kind of got a bit nervous and changed their game plan, and the Black Ferns weren't forced to change theirs. So I really like that heading into the final.
Well, I love this, and you know, you mentioned the coaches, but you've got to take your hat off to Wayne Smith.
Yeah.
And also, you know, what he's sort of done. And I hope that he's recognised over the New Year's sort of, you know, honours list in terms of what he's done. I mean, not just for the women's game now, but also the All Blacks and also the Crusaders and how sort of what he's implemented. He's one of the best guys, and you've experienced it. He gets the best out of players, and when that's reflective on the way the girls are playing and sort of the belief they have in it, I mean, he's just magic. You know, you can have an honest conversation with him. And I know there's still got one game left, but what he's done, and also Mike Cron as well, in terms of the coaching staff, what they've done is brought out real belief in what they had to do. They knew they're not going to try and have that physical presence because they're running out of time. But the game plan that he's actually enforced and sort of made the girls believe in has been sensational. And they're doing it. You're saying keeping the ball alive, keeping the ball in hand. You still got to go out there and actually try and make sure you stick to that game plan. But more importantly, have belief in it. So Wayne Smith is huge for me.
Speaking of game plan, Chelsea, obviously we saw Kendra, she was really keen, just jumping at the bit to tap that ball every time she had it. Do you think we might see a bit of a deviation away from that and maybe play the territory game a bit more against England? Because, yeah, there was plenty of them in the second half against France and times when you thought maybe go for the line out. Yeah,
there were definitely times there where I thought we probably should have gone, kicked it into the corner and started again, but we can see our game plan. We're told to speed it up, and that's what Wayne Smith wants, so that's what Kendra Coxedge has been doing. I think another thing that will come into that equation is England have the best defensive line out. They're really, really sharp in that area. So we'll be mindful of that as well, which is why I'm guessing we'll probably see a lot more. Just keeping the game sped up, quick taps and playing on top, which is what Wayne Smith says, and that's where we're playing our best rugby.
The tight five, Taylah and indeed Crystal Murray coming off the bench. She probably won't kick the ball again at this World Cup. She probably will. But your thoughts on the way they matched up against the French? We've talked about the breakdown dominance that Les Bleus had, but certainly I thought they played well that front row.
Yeah, I think like that first scrum penalty that went to the French, you know, maybe a bit nervous. I thought, oh, here we go. But then the next, you know, scrum, the Black Ferns just bit right back, and then they actually kind of levelled that out. And I actually do think they had the wood on the French when it came to scrum time. time because of that really strong front row of Pip Love, Georgia Ponsonby and Amy Rule. They all play together in the Farah Palmer Cup. But look, I was really impressed with them, especially our locks. Our locking duo are fantastic. And even when Jonah Ngannou came onto the field, you know, they didn't give up anything, the way she ran on and carried that ball as well. So I think the good thing about the tight five is they're not just doing their core role right, they're actually doing a lot on the field as well, like some good carries from the front rowers and the hookers, but also the replacement front row, as you said, Santo and Crystal, and then also Luca Connor, who I think is our #1 hooker at the moment. She really steadied the ship because the line out was a little bit messy in that first half, but then when Luca came on, she kind of settled that. So look, I think tight five is going to be the most important battle when it comes to the final next week. And it is, again, another story of redemption, because at the end of your tour last year, it was definitely the tight five that really suffered against such a strong French side. But I really think the confidence that those ladies will take out of the semi-final heading in, against England is going to be wonderful.
Chelsea, what did they learn? Let's talk about the England-Canada semi-final now. And I think we all can agree that it was wonderful to see the way Canada played. You know, you've got amateur players up against a professional team, and they really took it to them, didn't they, physically? When Wayne Smith and co review that tape, take a look at that ahead of the final. What do you think they'll be taking out of that, those lessons learnt from that Canada performance?
Yeah, look, I think Canada, wow. I was expecting a far bigger scoreline. I thought England would have put a lot more points on them, but they were there to play, and I haven't seen Canada play that well in a long time, and they just played with absolutely no fear. They didn't care. They were coming up against a team who had won 29 games on the trot. So kudos to the Canadian girls. They played with a lot of heart. In terms of England, they didn't do anything surprising, except actually their biggest strength is their line-out maul. Now they seem to chuck in a few little special plays off the line-out and went away from their mauling, which didn't work for them on the day. And I wonder if they're doing that because they know how much work our Black Ferns have been putting into our line-out maul defence, just to bring something new to the mix. So they'll definitely be looking at that in ways we can defend those special plays that they came up with. But yeah, the England girls, we know what they're good at. It's their attacking kicking. Their territory kicking is outstanding. It's the best in the women's game. So, look, I think we'll have to go with the same back three who started, because Renee Holmes is the best at positioning at fullback. So, yeah, not too many surprises from England, but we know we're going to have to step up another notch again.
Millsy, Emily Scarrett played her 100th cap earlier this year for the Red Roses, a wonderful player. You look at Zoe Harrison, but you look at the way Teresa Fitzpatrick and Stacey Fleuler played against that French midfield. How much confidence did they take from that performance? And if they can rattle the cage of that England sort of midfield halves duo, how far will that go to winning the final?
Oh, it's huge. And just mentioned the set piece and their kicking game. You know, the structure in the English game is exceptional. But they've also got threats out wide, and you've named some of those players that they see an opportunity. I mean, look at the try they scored from their own end goal. I mean, that's how lethal they actually can be. If you look at it, I think, you know, they're going to be a different beast once again. They would have had a lot of pressure on them from, you know, the Canadians. They were certainly tested around the ruck, which is an area that we know the Black Ferns sort of haven't quite gone to. So perhaps that might be an opening for the Black Ferns to say, okay, well, let's try and test them around here. The Black Ferns will be a lot more sort of fluent, and also the accuracy in terms of, you know, getting the ball out a little bit wider. But it's setting that up. I think you've got to set up a really nice, really good platform. And whilst we've played this expansive game, Taylah, we've still got players that can also mix it up in the physical stuff. And I think that's where it's got to start, to your point. You know, when you go to the front row and the tight five, they need to set a platform. And if it needs to be that we pick and go to get that accuracy, we've got some lethal weapons out wide that can really challenge this English team.
100%. Our forward pack has grown immeasurably. You know, you look at Leana Mikialitu, she's so young, but she's making such a big impact. The Bremner sisters, I think, have been outstanding this World Cup, both on attack and defence. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, because equally, though, that English team, I mean, Sarah Byrne runs like a winger, and she's a front rower. Like, so many times I was thinking, is that a winger out there? Because that is a big winger, but she was outstanding. But I think that semi-final actually helped New Zealand, because it showed the coaches the game plan that could actually work against England, because Canada, they played the most expansive rugby I've ever actually seen them play. They went from touchline to touchline trying to find some space, and they actually did find the space, and I think that's what kept them in the game. And they tried to challenge them on the outside and try and get around them, and they actually got through a couple of times. And if you're looking at out-and-out pace, we've got pace in that Black Ferns side, and they also played a really quick game, did Canada. Canada. You know, they were quick to tap things. You know, they were always trying to look for an offload, never wanting to go to ground and things like that. So I think if we look at what Canada did and execute a similar game plan, which is similar to what we are playing, then I think, you know, New Zealand could probably get that win.
That quick tap stuff is, you know, it's not so much off the cuff. Everyone's on the same sort of page, but it's putting the defensive line or the defensive team thinking, well, man, what do we have to do now? And it almost becomes, you know, a situation where they're like, oh, man, they're tapping everything. It's helter-skelter, but it actually isn't, because they know they want to play an upbeat game, but you've still got to execute it in a way that, you know, that your skill set, you know, is on top of its game, because to do that and to do, you know, do it against the English, who are going to bring some physicality, just similar to what the French did, man, you've got to do it well.
Also, Chelsea, I think we're going to have to keep a real close eye on Abby Dow, because Jean-Luc Sardonnay back in '94, the try from the end of the world for France against the All Blacks, that was right up there on par. That was sensational. And Canada had them really camped down in their own 22 on the goal line, asking questions defensively. But you look at that ability, Claudia MacDonald, moving the ball through midfield and finding that space. They're lethal anywhere on the park. Yeah,
they are. I love watching Abby Dow play. Every time she runs with the ball, she just has this look in her eye like she's going to pump someone, and she did that with that outstanding try she scored. So she's a real threat in that England team, and I think the way their back three work together, you can tell they've played a lot of tests, so it's that combination again shining through. Helena Rowland, the 15, did go down, so I do hope she's okay for the final. But if not, I mean, they've got a pretty handy replacement fullback there in Ellie Couldon as well. So the back three are a definite strength for England, and coming up against our back three, that is going to be one heck of a matchup.
Millsy, you talked about Wayne Smith's influence before and his management of this campaign in terms of selection. He's almost got it perfect. You wouldn't expect too many changes, if any, for the final.
Well, exactly that, and that's probably experience as well. He's had to make, you know, a number of big calls in terms of the, particularly the back three, because we've got some exceptional players in the back three department. You know, where you have Holmes sort of kicking as well, and her kicking's been awesome. 2 Ruby Tui slots in there, but it's the starting side that's probably been as difficult sort of options in terms of who he selects in the back three. But he'll have something purely in his mind, and then that's how good Smithy is. The best thing about that is the players that do end up missing out and making sure they're encouraged in terms of their role that they end up playing, whether it's off the bench or, you know, for some of these Wahine that's missed out as well. We've got some exceptional players that aren't even out in the field.
Yeah, and I think maybe Kennedy Simon gets a start, because she is coming back from injury, but she has played 2 games off the bench. She came on at half-time as well, and she brings a real physical presence, and that English loose forward trio is very physical. You know, we thought the French one was physical. Well, they're like another level up as well. As I said, Luca Connor, I think she really steadied the line out, so I'd like to see her get a start, but I definitely think they'll keep that same back three, especially with, you know, needing to counteract the English back three.
Yeah, I think Luca Connor's been playing some outstanding footy, but I think what Wayne Smith is so good at is knowing who's better at coming on for impact. Like some of those girls, it's not necessarily because they're not the best player. Like Jonah Nanwu, for example, she could start as lock, but her coming on in the last 25, 30 minutes as an impact player just really lifts us up again, and her coming on with Luca Connor and Kennedy Simon and some of the others is why we've been finishing games stronger than we've even been starting, because we do have such depth in our reserve bench as well.
Tactically, Mills, last night there were a couple of occasions after the Black Ferns had scored where it failed to really exit cleanly. Do you just put that down to maybe nerves of a semi-final and you're expecting a better performance in that area next week? Well,
that's pressure, isn't it? And, I mean, it's the best way to be able to learn. I mean, learn, but you still, you know, be able to win. There's no doubt that we've had a really good lead-up. You know, we're blowing, you know, teams away off the park and stuff. This was going to always be our biggest test once we got to the semi-finals, and how we collectively come together. So to win in the way that they did and to hold on for what felt like forever, I think you've got to. They'll take a lot from that. You know, they've got to be more clinical. Obviously, when they score points, like any other team that once you score points, you've got to be clinical and get it. Make sure you exit well and apply the pressure back on and really keep that momentum. This game's going to come down to who holds on to that momentum the longest, because both teams can play. Both teams and the English as well, they're a real threat. And so if you keep the ball away from them and starve them from that position without making too many mistakes, in a game plan that they're obviously going out there to try and implement, you know, keep the ball alive and play sort of, you know, upbeat tempo, you've got to make sure the accuracy is correct.
Well, I think we're just going to be set up for a Grand Slam finish. It's the replay of the last final. The English team are on a high. They have literally just broken their own record, 30 straight wins. The last team they lost to, though, Chelsea were playing for them was New Zealand, and it was back in San Diego, 2019, I think it was, But then also the Black Ferns, they're on a high as well because they've just got that redemption. They've just won a massive game at home. Ruahei Demant couldn't even speak at the press match because everyone was screaming and just cheering, and she just sit back and admired the crowd. So I think it's going to be a fairy tale finish.
Cannot wait. Well, it was a wonderful effort from Canada in the other semi-final, just falling short against England. The name De Goody is synonymous with Canadian rugby. Sophie De Goody's been a standout for the team for a long time. Her father, Hans, captained Canada at the 1987 Rugby World Cup. Her mother, Steph, the first captain of the women's team at the 1991 tournament. They came out to see their daughter play here in New Zealand. We've got the story here.
Two former Canadian rugby captains tiki-touring around New Zealand because your daughter is also the captain of the Canadian side at the Rugby World Cup. How epic is that?
We've loved it. We've loved meeting new people, the fans, seeing old friends. Here in New Zealand, we've reconnected with people that we met 20, 30 years ago, so that's been tons of fun. And, between wine tasting and sleeping on the beach and eating Tim Tams, it's been a wonderful tour.
It really makes you feel like you're part of an international thing, something really great, and the World Cup is just wonderful.
And I'm sitting with two former captains of the Canadian side. Does it run in your family?
It does now.
Yeah. You've made sure it has?
That's right, yeah.
Well, Soph's always been a real student of the game, so I think, from a young age, she's looked at rugby and watched rugby, and she was here at the 2011 World Cup following the rugby, so I think she's an analyst and she understands the game
She
well.
was 12 in 2011, right?
Wow, yeah.
Just our little girl.
Was she a bit nervous when she got given the captaincy, being surrounded by so many players that have played a lot more games?
I thought she handled it really well because there were other captains, girls that had been captain before, that were older than her. So she went and spoke to them first, made sure they were comfortable with the whole situation, and then took on the captaincy. So I thought it was really cool.
Now that you've seen that a lot of the teams are starting to go professional slowly or somewhat semi-professional, do you see Canada going into that direction?
I don't think we've got the money to do it, and I don't. We're struggling even for our men's program to be professional or play in the MLR, and we only have one MLR team in Canada. So I think it's a stretch for us, unfortunately.
Of the 4 teams in the semifinals, 3 are contracted, and Canada's not.
The girls have really had to sacrifice to be here. A lot of them did go overseas and play in the UK, in the Premiership, and in France, but it will be a stretch to get them contracted. Maybe some big millionaire will come and drop a bunch of money and contract all the girls.
Yeah. Well, we won't hold you, but thank you so much for spending the time to talk to us about it.
It's been a real pleasure. You bet.
Go Canada.
Go Canada.
Yeah.
Very much.
Betcha.
Thank
I can't
you.
wait for that.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot.
Tēnā koutou katoa, bori da. Welcome to our coverage of the 37th clash between the All Blacks and Wales to be played under the roof in Cardiff. Wanga kicking for the corner. And Johnny Barrett! Oh! Johnny Barrett, what a try. Now Smith's got it. Sees a little gap, off he goes. Aaron Smith. Oh! What a try! On a world record night for Aaron Smith, he scores. Here's Savia, throws an outrageous dummy, drops it off. Oh, Aaron Smith's there, and he's got a double. Change of direction, could open up, and it does. And it is Geordie Barrett, and he gets 2 for the night. The All Blacks have done the job big time in Cardiff, 55 points to 23.
They sure did get it done big time in Cardiff, 55-23. The All Blacks, their second win on this Northern Tour, following on from Japan. Mills, you were part of the commentary team this morning, up by 9 at the halfway point, but 5 second-half tries. They really found that other gear that we know the All Blacks have.
Yeah, they certainly did. I thought the rustiness wasn't quite there. There's a lot of players that came back that hadn't played for 5 or 6 weeks. Ade Savea, for me, was sensational. There are areas in the game that they'll be disappointed about, particularly, keeping the Welsh, in the game. But I thought the physicality that they showed, the ruck ball and the speed that they got that at, particularly up front, was pretty good, Chelsea.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's been the most improved part of the All Blacks' performance, is just the physicality. And I just felt like we saw a lot more passion in the boys' performance this week. They were really competitive at every breakdown. They were physical, making big tackles. So, yeah, look, I enjoyed watching that game, and I think the Welsh will be a little bit disappointed by their own performance, especially in that second half, obviously, letting 5 tries in. They did score a couple of really nice tries, one in particular off a scrum set piece, a really well-executed move. Tried doing that one in a few teams I've been a part of and never seen it executed that well. So, yeah, I think Ian Foster and the group have done an awesome job coming off the back of the Japan test to get the boys up and humming another level.
Yeah, and the All Blacks played like a team that had a point to prove as well. Yes, they got the win over Japan, and we'll be naive to think that they don't read the comments on social media and everything like that. And so, they were really passionate, and as you said, the passion was there, and that team went out there to do a job, and they did it. And even on defence, they had some outstanding plays on defence as well. And attack, they were exciting. So, look, everyone on that field really gave everything, I think, that night. Not that they ever don't, but it was just, you could see the extra passion and determination.
You can see the influence that the Barrett boys have, Mills, when they came back in. And perhaps last week we saw with Richie a bit of pressure off his shoulders last night in Cardiff, or this morning, because of those two guys, Geordie in midfield and his brother at the back. Yeah, not bad when you got those sort of guys returning, but also Aaron Smith. He was awesome. He probably took a lot of heat off Moonga, in terms of, just him having to concentrate on his role. I mean, the kicking game from Aaron Smith right from the get-go was on point. The chases, he got it right, the execution, but also his leadership. I mean, the most capped All Black back in history this night, and that was probably evident here. The way he scored that try is penalty advantage, but he took his opportunity. It almost rewound back to the time or the clock in terms of how he played. But you're right, confidence comes from those guys outside him, the experience that they have, and Moonga sort of, he really sort of, took the game by the scruff of the neck, and that's probably what we didn't see against Japan. But we really see some nice fluency within the All Black game plan. The defensive effort. The Welsh didn't really threaten them as much as possibly they would have wanted to. And probably the one downside is they probably let them off the hook, the All Blacks, when giving away the little small penalties when they didn't possibly need to. But they just looked, really, really solid in terms of, how they, and it showed in the scoreboard as well. The direction too, Chelsea. They played a lot more direct this week, as Mills is sort of alluding to. The way they wanted to play the game, they stuck to their guns, and as we saw in that second half, they were outstanding.
Yeah, I think what I loved from Aaron Smith in particular, obviously became the most kept All Blacks back ever, but I felt like he went back to the way he runs around the ruck as well. He has little darts and holds those first 2 defenders, allowing us to have more one-on-ones with players rather than just passing straight from the baseline. And I think we saw him back to his best doing that last night, as well as his running game. He was running there like it was his first cap, and he was young, he looked quick. So having him playing at his best obviously helps the All Blacks. And then Geordie Barrett at 12. I wasn't a big fan a little while ago, but I'm a massive fan of him there now. He just brings that physicality, that directness, but he also offers a very diverse kicking game for a 12 as well.
Taylah, Dalton Papalili looks like a kid who's been given $5 from his parents and says, go to the shop and buy yourself some lollies when he's on.
I thought you were going to say some hair dye.
Well, he's obviously bought some hair dye as well, but
he's gone Super Saiyan mode, that's for sure. He's just been absolutely outstanding, and he's playing like someone who has been starved of game time in that black jersey, and he's really relishing and being given this opportunity. He does his mahi, as a is a standard 7. He makes his tackles, he contests at the right time, but he's also really explosive on attack and he offers something different. So he's also a danger ball player. Like, you know, we see Artie with his outrageous dummies and things like that. Dalton's not really doing that at the moment. You know, he could progress his game like that, but, you know, we saw that brilliant break that he did early on in the match. I just think he's outstanding and he's really stamping his mark in that 7 jersey, but also all the loose forwards, I think, played really well last night. And it is going to be a really tough battle. You know, we look ahead to next year and I think, you know, this is where guys really need to stamp their mark and say, you need to look at me for that World Cup squad. And equally, going back to Chelsea's point around that midfield, I think Geordie Barrett was absolutely outstanding as well. And I think he may be what we need there because it's almost like that dual playmaker role, you know, because he's played fullback. He can play anywhere in that back line and having that is really special.
Just touching on that loose trio again, Chelsea, is Dalton your starting 7 for the rest of this tour? And indeed, I mean, he's got a great opportunity here. I know Sam is home injured, but a really wonderful chance to stamp his mark because it's about the balance of that back 3 in the loose as well. Yeah,
look, you said it, it's his opportunity. And I think, you know, obviously with Sam being at home, Dalton's going to want to take this by the neck. I think he should be the starting 7 and I think he deserves this opportunity. And he's going to want to create some headaches heading into the World Cup next year when you've got Sam coming back from injury, a few other good 7s putting their hand up and they will continue to put their hand up in Super Rugby as well. But Dalton knows if he puts his hand up in these next few games on this tour, he's going to put Fozzie in a bit of a selection to with his captain coming back. So I think Dalton deserves a start and he needs more game time. He hasn't had a lot of game time in the All Blacks, so this is the perfect opportunity.
Well, the man with the master plan behind this All Blacks forwards performance, the resurgence since that Ireland series earlier this year is Jason Ryan, and he caught up with Goldie after the test in Cardiff.
Well, Jason, just your assessment of the performance, particularly from your front 8 and the reserves off the bench.
Yeah, I think we overall we got better as the game got on. You know, like we talked around just because the roof's there, not overplaying and thinking there's all this space. And obviously the sprinklers went on last night, so the ball was quite slippery. But I think that sort of set us up for probably Scotland a little bit next week. Still a couple of late hands, they sort of killed our line out a little bit. But overall, I think when we got direct and in the 22, like I think the forwards really rolled their sleeves up and really got some quick ball.
In regards to the work defensively as well, though, you've got found out a little bit in the first half in terms of that ability to roll away. And is that just maybe adapting to the game in the Northern Hemisphere?
Yeah, I think so. You know, they sort of played quite tight, but then they do a couple of late carries out or switch out the back, and it just got us. We just bit a little bit early, but you know, it's a great thing for us to review and learn on the way. But you know, I think we can be pretty satisfied as a coaching group, and the boys should be pretty satisfied with the effort they put in too, you know.
Did you get the sense during the week, during the training, that performance was coming?
Yep. Yeah, we did. Like we built the week really well, Goldie. You know, we know that Japan was messy, and we weren't our best for that game, but we know that over here we have to be. And as we build in and think about big pitches to World Cups, playing Northern Hemisphere teams, we have to deliver up front. We just have to, and that's the message that we really drove. But it's a start for us. That's all it is, really.
What is it you talk to about the reserves before the game and prepare them for? And I'm sure there's no premeditated time that they're going to come on, but what are their expectations? What are the clear messages you send?
Well, they've got to be ready at any time. You know, the game can shift. You always get a bit of a feel for half-time, how the boys are feeling energy-wise, and we actually look really good as a pack. The boys were all eyes up, and we hadn't sucked too much out of us in the game, but then they've just got to come on and execute their role, be ready at any stage. You know, like we're just starting to build a little bit of depth in our props and our front row boys. You know, you bring Sonny on, Coates did a really good job tonight, and then it can just lift you, and that's what we really want, so we can finish games.
Have you had an eye on Scotland yet?
Yeah, I have had a good look at them Wednesday and also today. So I know Fiji gave them a bit of a nudge in certain parts of that game as well, but it's going to be great to head to Edinburgh, and really looking forward to continuing some momentum and some good form that we've done for this game, really.
Just lastly, is there a different confidence level in the group now compared to where you were through the Rugby Championship?
Yeah, I think so. Like, we talked a lot around the Rugby Championship's a competition as such, whereas this is just each week you've got to prepare. You know, we talked about bone deep, but you've got to go deeper. Let's go to the marrow, you know. Let's go really, really thorough and challenge each other and have a little bit of, you know, niggle during the week and just make sure the boys are right on edge. So I think we did that quite well, but it's a start to the tour, but you know it's going to get tougher and harder, and that's exciting.
Well done. Thanks very much.
No worries. Cheers, Goldie.
Jason Ryan, let's go to the Marrow. There's a T-shirt in that, I think, for Jason Ryan. He'll sell a few. Millsy, he talked a lot about confidence. You need look no further than the guy with 8 on his back, Adi Savia, and these outrageous dummies that he continues to throw. That's one of the things that was
getting
impressive.
away with those?
That's the real question.
But he just keeps getting better every test, Mills. It's exceptional.
Well, look what Jason Ryan said. You've got to win that physical battle against Northern Hemisphere teams. And when you have a guy like this that just keeps pumping his legs, winning that inch every single time, and then it creates havoc like this. Well, there's a dummy, see ya, and away he goes. But it also set up a brilliant try because they actually think he's gonna pass it. But he's leading from the front, and then everyone else follows. And when Jason Ryan says that, winning that physicality, even anyone can say that. You can say go out there and win the physical game. Of course, you're going to give it 100% and try and hit bodies, but there's got to be a technical aspect about it. Making sure everyone's on the same page. He's talking about the little niggle during trainings because they've obviously got to try and train that. And there's only one way to train it, and is go 100%. And some of those forwards can go 100, but it's making decisions whether when guys they've either lost the contact. Do we clean out here? Do we take care of help him with 4 legs and drive him through to create that quick ball. And we spoke about it before, Chelsea. You mentioned it with Aaron Smith. How effective is that when the forwards actually do an outstanding job in terms of their clean-out work? Then they move to shift the ball. The variation of getting a little bit wider off 9. Aaron Smith, is able to snipe a little wee bit. But when they're fighting for every last little inch, and then they get clean ball, it's just a roll-on effect because the next ball carrier comes around the corner. He's nice and set. He's square. If he's coming into pick, he's got a little wee gap there that they actually can try and go through. So you've got to take your hat off to Jason Ryan in terms of that because they've certainly shifted from where they were against the Irish team, and that's a mindset as well. So I'm glad he's saying that. And what sort of coach? I don't think I've ever heard a coach say when they've asked the question, have you looked at Scotland? And he says yes. He's so honest, in his assessment of his players and what he's done. So I love that he's actually, he's brought that to the table, but also getting the best out of his players.
He talked about bench too, Taylah, and we've all been blown away by Samisoni Taukei'aho in his performance this year on the field. But Cody Taylah, you've got to say, took his chances, couple of tries, and he played well, didn't he, at set piece. So that is probably one area they're going to have to look at, and whether it was just to give Cody a chance and get him fired up, we'll see what the selection looks like next week.
Well, it's a good headache to have 2 good options. And as you said, he played well. He scored the first 2 tries. He was a menace on attack and on defence as well. And look, that's all you can ask for is to steady up that line out and to be the best option you can be on the field. Samisoni, though, he's another lethal weapon as well, not only, doing his core roles right with getting that line out right, but also just his physicality. Mills has spoken about physicality a lot, and that's true with those Northern Hemisphere teams. They're very forward dominant, and, we saw the clean-out work that the All Blacks have been doing. It's because you need to protect that ball because those European teams are going to fight at the breakdown every single time. And I think defensively, the All Blacks did really well in general play. Like, the Welsh got to about 17 phases at one point, and they only gained about 5 metres. So the All Blacks really brought that physical battle where they needed to, and it does go down to people like Cody Taylah and Samisoni Taukei'aho, the front rowers, who are really starting to muscle up.
Rightio, let's take a look at this week's trivia question. And now, who do you think this is? Who do you reckon this is? Played for Hawke's Bay when they won the NPC Championship 2011. Played for the Chiefs when they won the title 2012. Started at 13. Currently playing for Coca-Cola Red Sparks in Japan. We'll come back and get the Mills reckons too easy, so we'll get the panel's thoughts on that after the break. And back to Cardiff, where Wayne Barnes, the English referee, officiated his 100th Test match. Now, it was a special night too because he used the whistle, started the game at least with the whistle from 1905, the last time Wales beat the All Blacks. He caught up with Goldie after the Test.
Well, Wayne, congratulations. A milestone. I'm a cricketer, and when you're raising a bat for 100, how did it feel out there and making that final step to that number?
You definitely a day for reflection, as you probably you know yourself, and just speaking to some of the players who've reached 100 on the game out there today. Sam and Alan Wynne. It is a time to reflect, but what was also nice today is the ability for my wife and 2 children to stroll down to the stadium with me and watch the game. First time that they've seen me in the international, so today, Cardiff. We drove down this morning and we were able to share what's a really special day for us, and me to say thank you to my wife and my kids, who lose me for 8 weeks when I go to a World Cup, lose me for 4 weeks when I come down for the New Zealand versus Ireland game. So very special.
I'll ask you one last question. I know you had a special whistle today. Did it actually work? Because I don't know if I heard it.
It was from 1903, I think it was. The only thing I was worried about was it going to stick to me lips, or maybe numb them, because they'd been scrubbing it and de-sterilising it for the last couple of days. But yeah, an historic game, and you blow it, you stick it in the whistle, but it's worth quite a bit of money, I'm told. So there was a lot of people watching me for the rest of the game, and as I got in at half-time, it was quickly stripped out of my pocket. But another part of rugby history, and the game today, will be one of those games that people remember for, as I said, a pretty blinking impressive performance.
After 7 years away, the Ireland A side is back on the field, and they are taking on a first ever All Black selection. Two teams packed with a blend of up-and-coming talent and established internationals desperate to fight their way back to the Test arena. Objective number one was to get that set piece going. They failed badly in that regard, and this is a counter-attack now for which New Zealand teams tend to inflict damage. To a Palatu, lovely ball inside to McKenzie, and it's taken up by Ruben Love, and he's got Stevenson outside him. Stevenson heading for the corner, and he gets his second try. That is ruthless. Here come New Zealand, the man of that first half, Sean Stevenson. He's eaten up the yards, and he's looking to put Paradero away. And it's taken just 30 seconds for New Zealand to get their first try of the second half. Ruben Love. Full time at the RDS. Ireland Day 19, New Zealand 15, 47 points.
How good from the All Blacks, 15, 47 points to 19 over Ireland. We'll rip into that game very shortly. But just looking at the trivia question, played for Hawke's Bay when they won the MPC Championship back in 2011, played for the Chiefs 2012 when they won the title and started at 13, currently playing in Japan for the Red Sparks. Now, I think we're going to get Mills from now on to come up with the trivia questions, because I think for the second week in a row you've said, oh, too easy.
He's moaning about it being too easy.
Too easy.
Is that Andrew Horrell?
It is Andrew Horrell.
Oh, I see what I'm far out, mate. Come on.
What, did you guys have Andrew Horrell?
I did, yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
I was just waiting for them to go first, and then I was going to copy it.
How's that?
Smart play. 52 games for the Chiefs, 53 Hawke's Bay. Andrew Horrell, 47 points to 19. Chelsea, this much talked about All Blacks 15. Did we see what we wanted to see from this exercise? Do you think the coaches saw a few things as well?
I definitely think so. I really, really enjoyed the game. I think Leo McDonald and the coaching team's done a fantastic job getting this group of players together within a short amount of time and putting a performance out like that. They didn't look like they were forming new combinations or anything. They just all seemed to gel, it seemed to flow. Really impressed with some of the individual performances, particularly Sean Stevenson, Ruben Love. I thought Damien McKenzie played really well. And I think the thing with this team is these boys have absolutely nothing to lose, right? They've just got everything to gain and proving points to everyone watching. So they played very free, I thought, with a lot of freedom. And yeah, it showed on the scoreboard how talented this next lot of All Blacks are.
Millsy, Chelsea's just said everything to gain, but what does someone like Sean Stevenson, what can he expect now? Because that was an excellent performance from him in particular, but now just the barbars await. But is there more? What does this mean in the greater context?
Well, I think it's a different mindset here. I think this team was obviously selected by the All Black selectors, so there's probably different categories in terms of the players that are in there. And Sean Stevenson, obviously, he got called in late. You've got the guys that are sort of bordering on possibly going to the next level to the All Blacks and vying for spots at the Rugby World Cup. Then you've got the youth that are coming through. We're looking at the guys like Ruben Love in particular that are coming through for the future. And then there's probably an element there where guys can't drop the ball, because they're showcased globally now, and they're probably looking for, if they miss out on their sort of Rugby World Cup at the end of the year, probably some overseas contracts. And so when guys go over there, there's obviously the mentality. I'm great. I'm stoked that our depth is, it's always, we've had a long period of time where we haven't played other teams, and our depth hasn't been tested. We've got really good depth, and there's some really nice depth coming through in our school teams as well, and our under-20s as well. So that's pleasing to see. But I think in terms of when they go over there, and Leon McDonald would have said that is these guys that have experience, like Sean Stevenson, that he knows. Every game now that he's showcased with the black jersey on, and particularly across, over the Northern Hemisphere, that he's, if he doesn't get selected later on, or if his contract's around there, because that's when everything sort of tends to happen. Well, there might be an opportunity, overseas. I'm not saying like James Lowe, for instance. He's gone on to play for Ireland, but obviously, Sean Stevenson, I think he's not eligible for another team. But there's opportunities there for guys like that.
What is the road ahead, Taylah, for Roger Tuivasa-Sheck now? That obviously Geordie played so well at Eden Park against Australia to round out the Rugby Championship. He comes back in. Does Geordie against Wales, but now what for RTS?
Well, a lot of people question what the reason was for this All Black 15 side, and I think we've seen it, and Mills kind of touched on it off camera, is that it is to build confidence in those players. Remember, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is new to Union, and giving him that experience at that level is only going to be really beneficial, and the likes of Enna coming back, and then Damien McKenzie as well. I think RTS is in a difficult position because you do have someone like Geordie who has put his hand up, says, I want to be a 10, and he's so skillful, and he's been around for a long time, and he offers other things. He's not just a midfielder, but then in the same essence, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck has now looked to move to the wing as well to show he's versatile, and I think that's really important in that professional games to show that you aren't just a one-dimension player, So Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, it's going to be interesting the next 12 months to see how he does in Super Rugby, and also, the next few games coming up for the All Blacks or the All Black 15. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does go, because we can't forget that he is extremely skillful.
You feel, Mills, like he's going to have a blinder of a super season to really force the selector's hand, because Damien McKenzie comes back in and just plays like the Damien we know, back up to that level, just carving defences to pieces.
Oh, Geordie Barrett's put the spanner in the works, in terms of playing 12, because, now you sort of got, the 12s there. You've got 4 12s, you've got Barrett, Havili, ALB, Ioane, but you still got, Quinn Tupai that's still out, and also Eno and, Goodhue. But then, what does the makeup look like off the bench? And this is why, these sort of tour games are fantastic, for the likes of the All Blacks, because it gets to test, okay, well, perhaps our picture now is different. We probably need another first 5 that can come off the bench as opposed to another midfield back that can only play midfield. Or does he then go shift to, wing? This is Roger Tuivasa-Sheck next year. But I think, to get him out there and playing week in, over there, instead of sort of sitting on the bench looking at it, watching the All Blacks play, I think that's good. He's going to have a really good season, because there is some real heat now in that midfield sort of, selections for the All Blacks. And, unfortunately, because he hasn't had much time, in the saddle in rugby, he's going to need to bring that. And he's been good. He was really good this year. He just needs to go to another level, like everyone else has to come Rugby World Cup if they want a spot in the All Blacks.
Chelsea, let's talk about the next opponents for the All Blacks. Scotland, they were pushed by Fiji. I know both sides are missing a few players, but Gregor Townsend, I don't think he'd be too happy with that performance in the way they played, heading into a test against the All Blacks. Some of the comments I've read this morning suggest maybe it's a bloodbath based on what we've seen in Cardiff next week.
Yeah, I think Scotland obviously would have wanted to perform better against Fiji and put more points on the board and show that they can score points coming up against the All Blacks. But Mills and I have talked about it. When you're in a black jersey, you know that every single team you're going to play against is going to add 20-30% to their performance. They just all of a sudden find this mana from within because they're playing against the All Blacks. And for Scotland, they'll do a deep dive into a review of their game, and they'll know now where they need to improve their performances. So I think what we've seen from the All Blacks this year, when we haven't played so well one week, we actually come back and play a lot better the following week, because we get to tidy up a lot of our errors. So we can't count Scotland out at all. They'll come back against the All Blacks, and this, for some of those players, this will be the highlight of their career. So they'll come out fighting for sure.
Mills, France-Australia was a heck of a test match this morning. Australia thought they had it in their last 4 minutes of that game, but Damien Penaud, he scored an absolute cracker of a try on the right wing. It was a heck of a test match, but it just shows, doesn't it, this French side is building beautifully as they head towards the World Cup next year.
Oh yeah, and the confidence levels as well. I mean that try the Wallabies scored from their own sort of half-Ikitao as well, but to be able to sort of soak that all up the French and still come away and win like that, man, all that does, it just lifts their spirits, and they know they're really riding a wave of confidence. You know, they're building nicely for the, you know, the Rugby World Cup. So, I mean, we've said it before, you know, they are definitely the favourites, you know, leading into next year's Rugby World Cup.
Ireland, Taylah, they just have picked up where they left off against the All Blacks, haven't they? The forward pack, again, immense. Van der Flair, Tyke Byrne, very physical against the Springboks, who that is their game. And Johnny Sexton, again, so impressive. Oh,
everyone knows that the Springboks are physical side. They're massive. They're huge every time we come up against them. And to see the Irish, you know, play the way they did against a side like that was outstanding, and just the confidence again that they're playing with, and that confidence will come from obviously winning that series against New Zealand and then going up and winning at home, you know, in front of a wonderful crowd. I'm really looking forward to the World Cup next year, because all of those European teams, bar Wales, you know, came away with a win. So it's a mouth-watering battle, I reckon.
How tough is it to play there, Mel? Stade de France. That just looked like an atmosphere and a half.
Oh, it is. I mean, traditionally, I mean, albeit last year, we've travelled really well, we've toured really well. You know, the other Southern Hemisphere teams have struggled, but the thing is, things are a lot tighter now. I mean, we talk about the French, but how about the Irish? They're a threat as well. England, you know, they're slowly coming about. They're always going to have challenges, but when it comes to Rugby World Cups, they rise to the occasion. Wales are not too bad either. You know, they've got some good talent coming through too. So this Rugby World Cup, and Fiji, I mean, I know that the Scottish, you know, will be disappointed they lost them, but man, they have got a really good team. I'm looking forward to the whole of next year. Oh, it's going to be fantastic. Chelsea, next weekend, it's going to be an absolute belter of a final. I know who you're picking, but by how much?
Yeah, definitely Black Ferns. We've been building for this for years now, so the girls will get it done. I think it'll be very, very tight. We won by 1 point this week, so next week 2 points.
What about you, Mills?
I think we'll win by 7.
7? Yeah. There you go.
You look unsure.
No, I'm nervous. I mean, this is a Rugby World Cup final, and 7's a lot. You know?
Not 8-7, but 7. Taylah, what do you reckon?
Look, it's Kendra Coxedge's last game ever in a black jersey in a Rugby World Cup final. I just know that those Black Ferns are going to get up for her. I think they're going to win by 4.
They'll get it done. The All Blacks will get it done against Scotland. That is the breakdown for another week. Have a safe week, and we will catch you again next weekend. Let's go, the Black Ferns.